Story number 1. The silent screams of Arang Medan. The night air was thick with humidity as our boat sliced through the calm waters of the Malacca Strait. Moonlight danced on the surface, casting silvery pathways that seemed to lead us deeper into the heart of the unknown. As a maritime historian, I had spent countless hours poring over maps and old newspaper clippings, but nothing had prepared me for the eerie silence that enveloped us tonight. Our destination was a place shrouded in mystery and fear, the wreckage of the Arang Medan. In 1947, this Dutch freighter was found adrift with its entire crew dead, their bodies contorted in grotesque poses, eyes wide open, mouths agape as if frozen in eternal screams. The ship had sent out a distress signal that was abruptly cut off, leaving behind nothing but unanswered questions and a haunting legend. My colleagues and I had assembled a team to investigate the site, driven by a mix of professional curiosity and a desire to uncover the truth behind one of the most perplexing maritime mysteries of the 20th century. As the captain navigated our vessel closer to the coordinates, the stories we'd heard echoed in my mind, tales of spectral apparitions, inexplicable phenomena, and the lingering presence of those who met their tragic end on that ill-fated ship. We anchored a short distance away, the boat gently swaying with the rhythm of the waves, armed with underwater cameras, sonar equipment, and a crew of seasoned divers. We prepared to explore the depths where the Arang Medan lay forgotten beneath layers of sediment and marine life. The chill of the night air was a stark contrast to the warm, oppressive humidity, and an unsettling feeling settled over me as we descended into the abyss. The darkness below was impenetrable, save for the beams of our lights cutting through the water like knives. As we approached the wreckage, the atmosphere grew heavy, the water around us growing colder and more still. The Arang Medan emerged from the darkness, its hull battered and broken, a silent testament to the forces that had claimed it. One by one, we swam through the skeletal remains of the ship, our flashlights revealing twisted metal and shattered windows. The silence was deafening, broken only by the distant calls of unseen creatures and the faint hum of our equipment. It was then that we began to see them, faint, ghostly figures floating amidst the wreckage, their forms barely discernible in the murky waters. "Guys, do you see this?" one of the divers whispered, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and awe. I nodded, heart pounding in my chest. The apparitions moved with a grace that belied their tragic forms, their eyes vacant yet filled with an indescribable sorrow. It was as if the souls of the crew had been trapped in an eternal loop, reliving their final moments over and over again. Suddenly, the water around us shifted, the temperature dropping rapidly. Our breaths became visible, each exhale a ghostly mist in the frigid air. The ghostly figures turned towards us, their eyes now glowing with an otherworldly light that pierced through the darkness. A sense of dread washed over me as I realized we were not welcome here. "We need to get out of here," I ordered, my voice barely steady as I signaled for the team to ascend. Panic set in as we began our ascent, the apparitions following us, their silent stares burning into our very souls. The oppressive atmosphere grew heavier, the water now seeming to constrict around us, pulling us back towards the wreckage. Just as we reached the surface, a deafening roar echoed through the water, shaking our boat and sending waves crashing against the hull. The ghostly figures were no longer just passive observers. They were guardians of the wreckage, protectors of the secrets that lay within. We scrambled to secure our equipment, adrenaline surging through our veins as we made a desperate bid for safety. The journey back was a blur of fear and urgency, the howls and whispers of the apparitions fading into the distance as we broke through the surface and the first light of dawn began to dispel the night's horrors. Exhausted and shaken, we retreated to the safety of our vessel, the mystery of the Arang Medan leaving an indelible mark on our minds. In the days that followed, we compiled our findings, the footage capturing the ethereal apparitions serving as both proof and curse. The legends of the Arang Medan had always been a subject of debate among historians and maritime experts. But now we had undeniable evidence of something beyond the realm of the living. Yet, with each retelling of our experience, a nagging sense of unease persisted. It was as if the spirits of the crew were still reaching out, their silent screams echoing in the corridors of our minds. We had uncovered the truth, but at what cost? The boundary between the living and the dead had been breached, and the haunting presence of the Aurang Medan would forever linger in the shadows of our collective consciousness. Years have passed since that fateful expedition, but the memory remains vivid. A chilling reminder of the night we encountered the silent screams of the Aurang Medan. The mystery remains unsolved, the secrets of the ship buried beneath the depths of the Malacca Strait, guarded by the restless souls who still wander its ghostly decks. If you ever find yourself navigating those waters, heed the warnings of those who have gone before. The ocean holds countless secrets, and some are best left undisturbed, their mysteries preserved in the silent depths where only the brave dare to seek the truth. Story number 2. Whispers in the Atacama. The Atacama Desert stretched endlessly before me, a vast expanse of barren land where the sky met the earth in a seamless horizon. Known as the driest place on earth, this harsh beauty was both mesmerizing and unforgiving. As a geologist, I had come to study its unique formations and extreme conditions, accompanied by a team of dedicated researchers who shared my passion for uncovering nature's secrets. Our base camp was a modest setup near the edge of a salt flat, the ground beneath our feet hard and cracked from years of relentless sun and wind. The nights here were a different beast altogether, cold, silent, and unsettlingly still. It was during one such night, under a canopy of twinkling stars, that our expedition took a turn into the realm of the inexplicable. We had been trekking for days, mapping out geological strata and collecting samples from areas untouched by human presence. Fatigue had set in, but the promise of discovery kept our spirits high. On the fourth night, as the temperature plummeted and the desert embraced darkness, we decided to take a break from our routine. Gathered around a small fire, we shared stories and theories, the flickering flames casting eerie shadows on our tired faces. Jake, our team's photographer, was recounting a local legend he had heard from a nearby indigenous community. "They say there's a woman in white who wanders these deserts at night," he began, his voice low and serious. "A spirit lost between worlds, searching for something she can never find. Those who see her never forget the chilling laughter that follows." Emily, our lead researcher, raised an eyebrow skeptically. "Sounds like a ghost story to me, probably just the wind playing tricks." But Jake's expression was unwavering. "No, it's more than that. I've heard accounts of scientists and travelers who've encountered her. They say her eyes glow in the dark, and her presence brings an overwhelming sense of dread." I chuckled, trying to dispel the unease settling in my stomach. "Come on, Jake. The desert can make you see things. We've been staring at rocks and salt flats for hours." As the night deepened, the temperature continued to drop, the fire struggling to keep us warm. We huddled closer, the silence of the desert pressing in around us. It was then that I heard it, a faint whisper carried by the wind, barely audible over the crackling of the fire. "Help me!" I froze, my breath visible in the cold air. The sound was soft, almost melodic, but laced with an unmistakable sorrow. I glanced around, trying to locate the source, but the darkness offered no clues. "Did you guys hear that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Jake nodded slowly, his eyes scanning the shadows. "Sounds like her." Emily rolled her eyes but remained silent, clearly dismissing the notion. We sat in tense silence, the only sounds the occasional pop of the fire and the distant howl of the wind through the dunes. Minutes felt like hours until, suddenly, a figure appeared at the edge of our campfire's glow. She was dressed in a flowing white gown, her long hair cascading down her back like a waterfall of darkness. Her eyes, large and luminescent, seemed to pierce through the night, glowing with an otherworldly light. The chill in the air intensified, and an oppressive sense of dread settled over us. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice cracking with a mix of fear and curiosity. She didn't respond verbally. Instead, she raised her arms, the gown billowing as if caught in an unseen breeze. Her presence was both haunting and sorrowful, a living embodiment of the legends Jake had described. I could feel her pain, a deep, unrelenting sorrow that seemed to emanate from her very being. Jake, ever the brave one, grabbed his camera, aiming to capture the apparition. "Don't move," he instructed, but his voice betrayed his fear. As he clicked the shutter, a loud crack echoed through the desert, the sound of the fire collapsing inward, sending sparks flying into the air. The woman let out a chilling laugh, a sound that resonated with an eerie finality. In an instant, she vanished, leaving behind only the remnants of the destroyed fire and the lingering echo of her laughter. We sat there, stunned and shaken, the reality of what we just witnessed sinking in. "We need to leave," Emily finally said, her voice steady but eyes wide with fear. Gathering our gear hastily, we decided to pack up and head back to base camp, the encounter leaving us all unnerved. The journey back was tense, the memory of the woman in white haunting every shadow and rustle of the wind. We moved quickly, eager to escape the oppressive feeling that still lingered in the air. As we reached the salt flat, the first light of dawn began to break, painting the sky in hues of pink and orange. The desert was calm once more, the night's horrors seemingly fading with the light of day. We didn't speak much during the drive back, each lost in our own thoughts, processing the night's events. Back at base camp, we reviewed Jake's photos, hoping to find some rational explanation, but amidst the grainy images, there was nothing, no figure, no eyes, nothing to validate what we had seen. It was as if the apparition had been a figment of our collective imagination, a manifestation of our fears and the desert's haunting silence. Days passed, and the memory of that night began to blur, replaced by the routine of research and exploration. Yet, the experience left an indelible mark on all of us. We became more cautious, more attuned to the whispers of the wind and the subtle shifts in the desert's silence. The legend of the woman in white took on a new layer of truth, a reminder that the desert held secrets beyond our understanding. One evening, as we prepared to leave the Atacama, Emily approached me, a serious expression on her face. "You know, there are other accounts of strange occurrences here, people who have disappeared without a trace, others who have reported sightings similar to ours." I nodded, a chill running down my spine despite the warm desert night. "Yeah, I guess some legends are born from more than just stories." As we drove away, the vast expanse of the Atacama stretched out before us, a reminder of the night's horrors and the enduring mysteries that lie hidden within its depths. The woman in white remained a haunting presence in our minds, a symbol of the desert's unforgiving nature and the thin line between reality and the supernatural. Years have passed since that fateful night, but the memory remains vivid, a testament to the power of legends and the unknown forces that dwell in the world's most extreme places. The Atacama Desert continues to guard its secrets, its silent beauty a stark contrast to the chilling encounters that occasionally breach its surface. If you ever find yourself trekking through the Atacama, heed the whispers of the wind and respect the legends that have been passed down through generations. For in the heart of the driest desert on earth, amidst the endless sands and silent dunes, lies a presence that watches, waits, and guards its domain with a sorrowful vigilance that can turn myth into a living nightmare. Story number 3. Whispers in the Kansas Prairie. The vast expanse of the Kansas prairie stretches endlessly beneath a canopy of midnight stars, each one a silent witness to the secrets that lie hidden in the darkness. I never imagined that a simple drive through these open lands would turn into a nightmarish ordeal. But life has a way of twisting the ordinary into the extraordinary. It was a cool October evening when Sarah and I decided to take a spontaneous road trip across the heartland. Our lives in Wichita had become a monotonous cycle of work and routine, and the allure of the open road promised a much-needed escape. With our old sedan packed to the brim and a playlist of our favorite songs setting the mood, we set off just as the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. The roads were quiet, bordered by endless fields of golden wheat swaying gently in the breeze. As the city lights faded behind us, the landscape transformed into a sea of shadows, the only illumination coming from the distant glow of the moon reflecting off the dew-kissed grass. The tranquility was both soothing and eerie, the silence punctuated only by the hum of the engine and the occasional call of a nocturnal bird. About 2 hours into our journey, with the darkness fully enveloping us, we realized we had taken a wrong turn somewhere near a stretch of desolate highway. The GPS had failed us, and the unfamiliarity of the area added to our unease. After driving for what felt like an eternity, the road opened up into a barren stretch of land, the prairie stretching out in every direction as far as the eye could see. "Maybe we should ask for directions," Sarah suggested, her voice tinged with apprehension. "I think we're too far out to find anyone," I replied, squinting into the darkness for any signs of civilization. "Let's just keep driving until we see some lights." But the more we drove, the less we saw. The night seemed to swallow us whole, the landscape becoming an oppressive blanket of blackness. Just as despair began to set in, a flicker of light appeared in the distance, a solitary house standing defiantly amidst the desolation. "Look, there it is," Sarah pointed, a flicker of hope in her eyes. "Maybe we can ask for help there." Relief washed over me as we approached the house, its weathered facade illuminated by a solitary porch light. It looked abandoned, the paint peeling and windows boarded up in places. Yet, there was something undeniably inviting about it, a beacon of safety in the vast wilderness. "Maybe someone lives there," I suggested, easing the sedan to a stop near the porch. We stepped out into the crisp night air, the sound of our footsteps crunching on the gravel path the only noise. Sarah reached for the door, pushing it open with a hesitant hand. The interior was dark, the air thick with dust and the lingering scent of mildew. I called out, "Hello? Is anyone here?" No response. We stepped inside cautiously, our flashlights cutting through the darkness, revealing a room frozen in time, furniture covered in white sheets, old photographs on the walls, and a grand piano standing silently in the corner, all untouched by the passage of years. "Maybe the owner is just sleeping," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible. We moved deeper into the house, the eerie silence amplifying our anxiety. As we ascended the creaky staircase, a faint sound reached our ears, a soft, rhythmic tapping that seemed to emanate from the floor above. "Did you hear that?" I asked, my voice trembling. Sarah nodded, her eyes wide with fear. "Yeah, it sounded like footsteps." We reached the top of the stairs, the tapping growing louder, more deliberate. I took a deep breath, summoning the courage to investigate, pushing open the door to what appeared to be a bedroom. We were met with a sight that sent chills down our spines. There, standing in the center of the room, was a woman in a flowing white dress. Her hair cascaded down her shoulders, and her eyes were wide open, staring blankly into nothingness. Her mouth hung open in a silent scream, and her hands trembled uncontrollably. "Help me!" Her voice was a mere whisper, yet it echoed through the room with a haunting clarity. I froze, unable to move as fear rooted me to the spot. Sarah reached out a hand, but I restrained her, the supernatural presence overwhelming our senses. The woman's eyes seemed to bore into our souls, her silent plea resonating with an unspoken pain. "We need to go," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. As we turned to leave, the room grew colder, the temperature dropping rapidly. The woman's form began to waver, her outline blurring as if she were made of mist. Suddenly, she let out a blood-curdling scream that shattered the silence, causing us to stumble back in terror. The sound reverberated through the house, and the walls seemed to close in around us. Shadows danced menacingly, elongating and twisting into grotesque shapes. The door we had entered through slammed shut, trapping us inside. Panic set in as we struggled to open it. But it wouldn't budge, the handle frozen in place. "What's happening?" Sarah cried, tears streaming down her face. I looked around frantically, searching for a way out. But the house had transformed into a labyrinth of horror. The walls now pulsated with an otherworldly energy, and the air was thick with the scent of decay and sorrow. The woman in white began to materialize again, her presence more malevolent than before. "Leave this place," she demanded, her voice echoing with authority. "You cannot escape the past." I grabbed Sarah's hand, desperation fueling my actions as I attempted to pull her towards the door. But as we struggled, the house seemed to react, the walls closing in tighter, the shadows growing darker and more oppressive. The woman's eyes glowed with an unholy light, her form now towering over us, exuding an aura of pure malice. "Please," I begged, my voice cracking under the weight of fear. "We didn't mean any harm. Let us go." Her expression twisted into one of fury, and she lunged towards us with supernatural speed. I felt her cold hands wrap around my throat, squeezing tightly, cutting off my breath. Sarah screamed, trying to break free, but the grip only tightened, the darkness pressing in from all sides. Just as I felt consciousness slipping away, a blinding light filled the room, the intense brightness pushing back the darkness and the woman's horrifying form. The grip on my throat released, and I gasped for air, my vision clearing as the house returned to its original, dilapidated state. We stumbled out of the bedroom, the door swinging open as if nothing had happened. The night air felt warm against our skin, the oppressive chill and malevolent presence now gone. Without a word, we ran down the stairs, out of the house, and back to our car, our hearts pounding in our chests. As we sped away, the house faded into the distance, its secrets once again hidden beneath layers of time and abandonment. We didn't stop until we were miles away, the memory of that night etched into our minds like a scar that refused to heal. In the days that followed, we tried to rationalize what had happened, dismissing it as a shared hallucination brought on by fear and isolation. But the evidence was undeniable: the shattered door, the sudden drop in temperature, and the lingering sense of being watched. The house in the Kansas prairie held a darkness that defied explanation, a reminder that some places are best left undisturbed, their secrets buried beneath layers of fear and time. Years have passed since that fateful night, but the memory remains vivid, a haunting echo that refuses to fade. Sarah and I often find ourselves staring into the night sky, the stars a stark contrast to the darkness that once consumed us. The house still stands, a silent sentinel in the prairie, its windows reflecting the moonlight like empty eyes watching over the land. If you ever find yourself driving through the Kansas prairie on a cool autumn night, remember our story, respect the legends, heed the warnings, and tread carefully, for in the heart of the wilderness, amidst the endless fields and the silent shadows, lies a presence that waits, patient and eternal, for the next soul brave enough to uncover its cursed past. Story number 4. Echoes in the Arctic Dark. The Arctic had always been my sanctuary, a vast, untouched expanse where the silence was profound and the beauty otherworldly. As a seasoned explorer, I had ventured to some of the most remote corners of the globe, but nothing had prepared me for the haunting experience that awaited my team and me near the desolate stretches of the Arctic Circle. It was late October when we set out, a group of 5, each driven by a different motivation: scientific discovery, personal challenge, or sheer curiosity. Our mission was to study the rapidly changing ice patterns and document any anomalies that might hint at climate shifts or unknown phenomena. Equipped with state-of-the-art gear, satellite phones, and a sturdy snowmobile, we felt ready to tackle whatever the Arctic had in store. The first few days were uneventful, the monotony of white landscapes and biting cold almost meditative. We set up our base camp on a plateau overlooking a frozen lake. The surface smooth and mirror-like under the pale sunlight. Nights were particularly serene. The sky a blanket of stars so bright they seemed within reach. It was during these quiet hours that the Arctic revealed its most profound mysteries. On the fourth night, as we huddled around a portable heater, sharing stories to stave off the creeping cold, the tranquility was shattered by an eerie sound. A low, mournful howl echoed through the stillness. Unlike anything we had ever heard, it resonated with a depth that seemed to vibrate through the very ground beneath us, sending chills down our spines. "Did you guys hear that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Jake, our geologist, nodded cautiously. "Yeah, sounded like a wolf, but deeper." Sarah, our lead navigator, frowned. "Wolves are out here, but that was different. More unsettling." We sat in uneasy silence, the howling repeating at irregular intervals, each time more intense than the last. It wasn't just the sound. It was the emotion behind it: desperation, sorrow, and something else I couldn't quite place. As the night wore on, the howls became a haunting refrain, weaving into our dreams and making sleep elusive. The following morning, we were greeted by a thick fog rolling in from the lake, reducing visibility to mere meters. Determined to make progress, we decided to venture deeper into the wilderness, following the satellite images that showed unusual ice formations ahead. The journey was arduous, the snowmobile struggling against the relentless wind that whipped the frozen landscape into a frenzy. Around midday, as we approached a particularly dense section of the ice field, Sarah called out from the front, "Guys, look at this." We gathered around to inspect the anomaly. A series of gigantic footprints etched deep into the ice, far larger than any known animal in the region. Each step was perfectly spaced, indicating a deliberate stride. The footprints led towards a narrow crevasse, barely visible amidst the surrounding snowdrifts. "That's not a bear," Jake muttered, kneeling to take measurements. "Even the largest polar bears don't leave prints that size." Emily, our biologist, added, "And there's something else. I can feel it." Before we could discuss further, another howl pierced the air, louder and closer this time. The ground beneath us seemed to tremble as the sound resonated through the ice, creating vibrations that felt almost tangible. Panic set in as we realized we were not alone. "Let's head back," I urged, my voice tinged with urgency. "Whatever that was, it's not safe here." But the footprints beckoned us forward, a mysterious invitation we couldn't ignore. As we deliberated, the howling intensified, now accompanied by the sound of heavy footsteps crunching through the snow. The footprints behind us began to mirror those we had found, appearing one after another as if a shadowy presence was following our every move. "Don't look back," Sarah warned, her eyes darting between the trail and the darkened woods beyond. I nodded, my heart pounding. "Stay close and keep moving." We pressed onward, the landscape growing increasingly hostile. The temperature dropped sharply, and the once serene beauty of the Arctic transformed into a nightmarish expanse of ice and shadow. The howls seemed to follow us, a constant reminder of the unseen terror stalking our every step. As dusk approached, we found ourselves near an ice cave, its entrance a gaping maw in the frozen terrain. Desperate for shelter, we decided to take refuge inside, hoping the structure would provide some semblance of safety from the relentless pursuit. Inside the cave, the temperature plummeted even further, the walls slick with frost and ice crystals that sparkled like deadly jewels. We set up a temporary camp, the flickering light of our headlamps casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. The howling had ceased, replaced by an oppressive silence that pressed in on us from all sides. "Do you think it's still out there?" Emily asked, her voice barely audible. I shook my head, though doubt gnawed at me. "I don't know, but we need to stay calm and stick together." As the night deepened, the silence was shattered once more by the unmistakable sound of footsteps, slow, deliberate, and unnervingly heavy. The footsteps circled the cave, growing louder and more menacing with each passing minute. We huddled together, our breaths visible in the frigid air. As the presence of the creature became undeniable, the sound of breathing followed, each exhale a visible mist in the icy chamber. Then, without warning, a figure emerged from the darkness, tall, hulking, and covered in thick, matted fur. Its eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, piercing through the gloom with a haunting intensity. The creature stood motionless, its gaze fixed on us with a mixture of sorrow and wrath. What are you?" I stammered, my voice cracking under the weight of fear. The creature let out a low, guttural growl, a sound that reverberated through the cave and seemed to echo in my very bones. Took a step forward, the ground shaking with each movement, until it stood mere inches away from us. The air grew thick with tension, the silence broken only by the creature's heavy breathing and the distant howling that now seemed to penetrate even the safety of the cave. "Leave, now." Its voice was a deep, resonant echo, filled with an emotion that transcended fear, something akin to profound sorrow. "I don't want to hurt you," I replied, struggling to maintain composure. "We were just lost, seeking shelter." The creature's eyes seemed to soften, a flicker of understanding passing through them. But the fear was still palpable, and its presence remained a constant threat. It began to move back, its massive form blending into the shadows as quickly as it had appeared. The footsteps faded, leaving us alone once more in the oppressive silence. "We need to leave," Sarah whispered, her voice trembling. "Now." Gathering our courage, we packed up our gear and prepared to exit the cave, the creature's presence lingering in our minds like a dark cloud. As we stepped outside, the night was alive with sounds, howls that seemed closer, footsteps that echoed our own. The footprints we had found earlier were now mirrored by a trail of our own, leading deeper into the darkness. Determined to survive, we followed the footprints, pushing through the thick snow and navigating the treacherous terrain. The howling persisted, growing louder and more frantic, a constant reminder of the entity stalking us through the Arctic wilderness. The footprints ahead led us to a narrow ridge overlooking the frozen lake, the water below a mirror of the star-filled sky. "We're almost there," I said, my voice hoarse. "Just a bit further." But as we approached the edge, the howling reached a crescendo, the sound enveloping us in a vortex of fear and desperation. The footprints behind us mirrored our every step, as if the creature was one step ahead, always just out of sight but never out of reach. Suddenly, a blinding light illuminated the ridge, the stark contrast between light and shadow momentarily disorienting us. When our vision cleared, the creature stood before us once more, his presence undeniable and terrifying. But this time, there was something different, a flicker of sadness in its eyes, a silent plea that resonated deep within me. "Please, help us." Its voice echoed through the cold night air, the weight of countless untold stories pressing upon us. I felt a surge of empathy, a connection that transcended the fear and uncertainty. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The creature hesitated, its form wavering between the physical and the ethereal. "Broken, lost, need peace." Understanding dawned on me. This was not a mindless predator, but a tormented spirit bound to the Arctic, its existence a testament to tragedies long forgotten. The howling was not a call for vengeance, but a cry for help, a plea for release from eternal wandering. "We can help you," I said, stepping forward despite the fear coursing through my veins. "Tell us what we need to do." The creature's eyes glowed brighter, a light of hope amidst the darkness. It extended a massive hand, palm open, inviting us to follow, find the heart of the storm. Without fully understanding, I nodded, the realization that we had stumbled upon something beyond our comprehension guiding our actions. The creature led us through the treacherous terrain, each step bringing us closer to the heart of the Arctic wilderness, where ancient forces and untold mysteries awaited. As we reached the center of the storm, a swirling vortex of snow and ice, the creature faded, his purpose fulfilled. The howling subsided, replaced by a profound silence that... Story number 5. Phantom on Highway 50. The Nevada desert stretches out before you like an endless sea of sand and shadows. Especially when you're cruising down Highway 50, the so-called loneliest road in the world. I've driven this stretch countless times, but nothing about that night was anything like the others. It was October, and the chill in the air was starting to settle in, a stark contrast to the blistering heat of the day. I was returning from a late-night conference in Reno, my mind exhausted from presentations and meetings. The highway was almost empty, just the occasional truck passing by, their headlights briefly illuminating the desolate landscape. My truck's heater was on full blast, battling the creeping cold that threatened to seep into every corner of the cabin. Around midnight, as I approached mile marker 200, the road seemed to stretch out even more, the vastness of the desert pressing in on me from all sides. The sky was a deep, inky black, speckled with countless stars that twinkled like distant eyes watching my every move. I had always found solace in driving alone, the solitude allowing me to think and unwind. But tonight felt different, ominous. Somehow, as I drove, I noticed a figure standing by the side of the road up ahead. At first, I thought it might be a hitchhiker, someone needing a lift. He was an older man, dressed in a worn-out coat, his hands clasped together as if in prayer. His presence was unusual for this remote stretch, and I felt a pang of unease. Should I stop? I muttered to myself, glancing at the dark silhouette. Just as I was about to turn around, the man raised his hand, a silent gesture for me to pull over. My heart raced, a mix of curiosity and caution compelling me to comply. I eased my truck to the shoulder, the engine idling softly as I rolled down my window. "Do you need a ride?" I asked, my voice betraying a hint of nervousness. The man nodded, his eyes meeting mine with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. "Yes, please. I'm lost," he replied, his voice gravelly and hollow. I glanced around, half expecting to see someone else lurking in the darkness. But the desert remained eerily silent. "Where are you trying to go?" I asked, trying to mask the unease I felt. "Anywhere but here," he responded cryptically, his gaze never wavering from mine. I hesitated for a moment before gesturing for him to climb into the passenger seat. "All right, hop in." He settled into the seat opposite me, the warmth of the truck's interior a stark contrast to the cold night outside. As I drove, I tried to make conversation, but the man remained quiet, staring out the window into the vast expanse of the desert. Minutes turned into hours, and the conversation dwindled to silence. The man's presence was unsettling, his eyes empty yet piercing, as if he could see right through me. I felt a growing sense of dread, an inexplicable fear that tightened its grip around my chest. Suddenly, the truck jolted violently, throwing me forward. I slammed on the brakes, heart pounding as the engine sputtered and died. The dashboard lights flickered, casting erratic shadows across the cabin. I tried to restart the engine, but it refused to budge, the truck dead as a doornail. "What's happening?" I demanded, panic rising in my voice. The man looked at me with a sad, hollow expression. "You shouldn't have stopped." Before I could respond, the truck was enveloped in an unnatural chill, the temperature dropping rapidly. My breath became visible in the air, each exhale a ghostly mist in the freezing cabin. The man's eyes seemed to glow with an otherworldly light, and his presence grew more menacing, the air thick with an oppressive energy. "Let me go," pleaded, my voice shaking. "I don't know you." He reached out, his hand closing around mine with an icy grip that sent pain coursing through my veins. "You can't escape the past," he whispered, his voice echoing in the confined space of the truck. Desperation fueled my actions as I tried to pull free, but his grip was unyielding. The cabin seemed to darken, the shadows growing deeper, swallowing the light as if the very essence of fear had taken physical form. My mind raced, searching for a logical explanation, but none came to mind. It was as if the desert itself had come alive, feeding off my fear and desperation. With a final, heart-wrenching scream, the man vanished, leaving me alone in the freezing truck. The engine roared back to life, the sudden warmth a stark contrast to the icy grip he had left behind. I didn't wait to see what had happened. I floored the accelerator, driving away from the spot where I had encountered the mysterious man. As I sped down the highway, the night's horrors clung to me like a second skin. The chill in the air remained, a constant reminder of the encounter, and the images of the man's empty eyes haunted my every thought. I couldn't shake the feeling that something unseen was watching me, following me through the endless stretches of the desert. By the time I reached Reno, the first light of dawn was breaking over the horizon, casting long shadows across the landscape. I pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour diner, my hands trembling as I grabbed a cup of steaming coffee. I sat in silence, the warmth of the drink a small comfort against the lingering fear. I replayed the night's events in my mind, trying to make sense of the inexplicable encounter. The man, his hollow eyes, the oppressive chill, everything felt surreal, like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I glanced around the diner, half expecting to see the ghostly figure standing in the shadows. But the place was bustling with early risers going about their day. Days turned into weeks, and the memory of that night began to fade, replaced by the mundanity of daily life. But sometimes, when the desert winds howled outside my window or the chill in the air settled in just right, the memories would resurface, vivid and terrifying. I couldn't escape the feeling that the man from Highway 50 was still out there, wandering the desert, searching for something he could never find. I did some research, delving into the history of Highway 50 and the countless stories of lost souls and phantom hitchhikers that plagued its lonely stretches. Most were dismissed as urban legends, but a few had unsettling details that mirrored my own experience. It seemed that the desert was a place where the boundaries between the living and the dead blurred, where the past could reach out and haunt the present in ways that defied explanation. One night, driven by a mix of fear and curiosity, I decided to drive back to the spot where it all began. The highway was just as desolate as I remembered, the vast expanse of the desert stretching out before me like an endless void. I parked my truck by the side of the road, the cold night air biting at my skin, and stepped out into the darkness. I stood there for a moment, the silence of the desert pressing in around me. The stars twinkled above, indifferent to the struggles of those below. I took a deep breath, the memories of that night flooding back, and began walking towards the very spot where I had encountered the mysterious man. As I approached, the air grew colder, the temperature dropping rapidly as if the desert itself was warning me to turn back. My heart raced, a mix of dread and determination pushing me forward. I reached the spot, the same stretch of road where I had stopped to help a stranger in need. Suddenly, a chill wind swept through the desert, carrying with it a faint sound, a mournful howl that echoed through the night. I turned to see a figure emerging from the shadows, the man from that night standing before me once more. His eyes were as empty and hollow as I remembered, his presence a haunting reminder of the desert's dark secrets. "Why do you keep coming here?" I asked, my voice barely audible over the howling wind. He looked at me with a sorrowful gaze, his hollow eyes reflecting the pain of countless lost souls. "You don't understand. I'm trapped here, bound to the past, searching for redemption that will never come." Tears welled up in my eyes as I realized the depth of his torment. "What can I do to help you?" pleaded, desperate to ease his suffering. He reached out, his icy fingers brushing against my cheek, a touch that sent a jolt of fear and sorrow through me. "Forgive me," he whispered, his voice carrying the weight of endless regret. In that moment, a profound sense of understanding washed over me. The desert was a place of harsh beauty and unforgiving isolation, where the spirits of the past could linger, unable to find peace. I vowed to honor his memory, to share his story and ensure that his suffering was not forgotten. As dawn broke over the horizon, the chill in the air lifted, replaced by the warmth of the rising sun. The man vanished, his presence fading into the light, leaving me alone with the realization that some encounters leave scars that never fully heal. I returned to Reno, the memory of the phantom on Highway 50 forever etched into my soul. The loneliness of the desert and the haunting presence of lost souls serve as a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring power of compassion. The loneliest road in the world holds secrets that defy understanding. And sometimes, the most terrifying encounters are those that linger in the shadows, waiting for someone to acknowledge their silent cries. If you ever find yourself driving. Story number 6. Luminescence on the Himalayan peaks. The Himalayas have always been a beacon for adventurers and dreamers, their snow-capped peaks piercing the sky like the spines of ancient, slumbering giants. As a seasoned mountaineer, I had conquered some of the most formidable ranges on Earth. But nothing had prepared me for the eerie experience that awaited my team and me during our ascent of Annapurna. We were a diverse group, Raj, the fearless leader with a passion for high-altitude expeditions. May, a geologist eager to study the region's unique rock formations. Tenzin, our local Sherpa guide whose knowledge of the mountains was unparalleled. And me, David, a photographer driven by the desire to capture the untouched beauty of these sacred peaks. Our journey began in late October, the air crisp with the promise of clear skies and breathtaking vistas. The climb was grueling yet exhilarating. Each step took us higher, the thin air making every movement a conscious effort. The camaraderie among us was strong, our shared goal uniting us against the relentless challenges of the mountain. By the third day, we had established a base camp near a secluded valley, surrounded by towering cliffs and expansive glaciers that shimmered under the afternoon sun. As dusk settled, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, we gathered around the campfire, sharing stories and planning our ascent for the following day. The silence of the mountains was both comforting and intimidating, a reminder of the isolation we faced in this unforgiving landscape. "Did you hear about the lights?" May asked, her eyes reflecting the flickering flames. "They say some climbers have seen mysterious illuminations on the peaks at night." Raj chuckled, dismissing the notion. Probably just reflections or natural phenomena. The Himalayas are full of optical illusions. But May wasn't so easily convinced. "Some say they're the spirits of those who've lost their lives here, still wandering the mountains. Others believe it's something more supernatural." I listened intently, the idea of spirits lingering in the mountains sending a shiver down my spine. The wind whispered through the pines, carrying with it an almost sentient presence that seemed to echo May's words. That night, sleep eluded me. The howling wind outside our tent was unnervingly loud, and the darkness felt thick, almost tangible. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with thoughts of the stories we'd heard. Suddenly, a faint, ethereal glow pierced the darkness outside. I grabbed my camera, curiosity overcoming my fatigue, and peered out through the tent's flap. There, atop a nearby peak, a brilliant light shimmered against the night sky, pulsed gently, casting long shadows across the snowy landscape. My heart raced as I realized the light was moving, dancing across the ridge with a life of its own. "Raj, May, wake up," I whispered urgently, shaking Raj awake. "There's something outside." Raj groaned, pulling himself out of bed. "What is it?" I pointed towards the peak. "Look." We stepped outside, the cold night air biting at our skin. The light was mesmerizing, unlike anything I'd ever seen. It moved in patterns that defied natural explanation, almost as if it were communicating. May frowned, her scientific mind trying to rationalize the phenomenon. "It's beautiful," she breathed, "but I can't explain it." Tenzin, ever the pragmatic guide, scanned the darkness with his headlamp. It's probably just a light reflecting off the ice or a distant campfire. These mountains play tricks on your eyes. But as we watched, the light began to change. It grew brighter, more intense, and then split into multiple beams that pointed towards different directions. The ground beneath our feet seemed to hum with energy, the air thickening with an almost electric charge. Suddenly, the lights coalesced into the shape of a human figure, tall, with elongated limbs and an aura that radiated both sorrow and menace. The figure reached out towards us, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light that pierced through the darkness. "Leave this place," it intoned, its voice a haunting echo carried by the wind. "Do not disturb the peace of the mountains." Raj stepped forward, trying to maintain his composure. "We're just passing through. We mean no harm." The figure's expression twisted into one of anguish. "Many have come before you, seeking glory and conquest. Now, you must join them in eternal watch." Before we could react, the figure dissipated into a flurry of light, leaving us standing in stunned silence. The temperature plummeted, and the once calm night erupted into chaos. Whispers filled the air, voices of lost souls echoing through the valleys, their sorrow palpable. "We need to get back to camp," I urged, my voice shaking. "Now!" We raced back to our tent, the whispers growing louder, intertwining with the howling wind. As we reached the safety of our shelter, the lights from the peak flickered one last time before fading into the night. The silence that followed was deafening, the oppressive fear lingering in the air like a dense fog. The next morning, the sun rose slowly, casting a golden hue over the mountains. The night's events felt surreal, as if we had glimpsed a hidden realm within the Himalayas. May was visibly shaken, her eyes reflecting the lingering fear. "Do you think it was real?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Raj nodded solemnly. "I don't know what we saw, but it wasn't something natural. The mountains hold many secrets, and some are better left undisturbed." We packed up our gear in tense silence, the experience forever changing our perception of these majestic peaks. As we began our descent, the memories of that night haunted us, the echoes of the lost souls a constant reminder of the thin line between ambition and reverence. Years have passed since that harrowing climb, but the image of the luminous figure atop Annapurna remains vivid in my mind. The Himalayas continue to draw adventurers, each seeking their own triumphs and discoveries, unaware of the spirits that watch over them from the shadows. The lights on the peaks serve as both a warning and a plea, a testament to the enduring presence of those who came before us, their stories etched into the very fabric of the mountains. If you ever find yourself trekking through the Himalayas at night, remember our story, respect the legends, heed the whispers of the wind, and tread carefully, for in the heart of these ancient peaks lies a world beyond our understanding, where the spirits of the lost roam eternally, guarding their sacred domain with a sorrowful vigilance that can turn the quest for glory into a descent into the unknown. Story number 7. Shadows of the Amazon. The Amazon rainforest is a place where nature reigns supreme, a labyrinth of green that stretches endlessly, concealing secrets older than time itself. As an avid explorer and a firm believer in the unexplained, I had always been drawn to its mysteries. My latest expedition was solo, driven by a relentless desire to uncover the truths whispered among the indigenous tribes and dismissed by mainstream science. I arrived in Manaus in late September, the air thick with humidity and the symphony of nocturnal creatures. My goal was to penetrate deeper into the heart of the rainforest than I had ever dared before, to explore uncharted territories where few had set foot. Equipped with a sturdy machete, high-resolution camera, and a notebook filled with observations, I embarked on my journey with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The first few days were a blur of dense foliage and relentless rain. Each step forward was a battle against the oppressive humidity and the unending maze of trees and vines. Nights were spent in makeshift camps, the sounds of the forest a constant reminder of the life teeming around me. It was during these quiet hours that the true nature of the Amazon revealed itself. not just as a repository of biodiversity, but as a place where the line between reality and the supernatural blurred. On the fifth night, after setting up camp near a secluded riverbank, I settled into my sleeping bag, exhaustion pulling me into a restless sleep. The moon hung low in the sky, its pale light filtering through the dense canopy, casting eerie shadows that danced with the gentle sway of the trees. As midnight approached, the usual chorus of crickets and frogs was interrupted by a series of deep, guttural growls that resonated through the forest. I sat up, heart pounding, and listened intently. The sounds were unlike anything I had heard before, too deliberate, too menacing to be attributed to any known animal in the region. My rational mind tried to dismiss it as a large predator or perhaps a territorial fight between species, but a nagging sense of unease kept me awake. The growls continued, growing louder and more frequent, until they seemed to envelop me from all directions. I reached for my flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness, revealing nothing but the thick, impenetrable forest. Suddenly, a pair of glowing red eyes appeared in the distance, reflecting the light with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. Frozen in place, I watched as the creature stepped into view. It was colossal, easily standing over 7 feet tall, covered in thick, matted fur that seemed to absorb the moonlight. Its eyes burned with a malevolent glow, and its presence exuded an aura of ancient sorrow and unyielding menace. The creature moved with a silent grace, its heavy footsteps barely disturbing the soft earth beneath it. "Help me!" A voice echoed through the night, ethereal and distant, as if carried by the wind itself. The creature turned towards me, its eyes never leaving mine. I felt an overwhelming sense of dread, as if the very air around me had grown thick with tension. The growls shifted into a low, mournful howl, a sound that resonated deep within my bones. I realized with horror that the creature was not merely hunting me. It was trying to communicate, gathering every ounce of courage. I slowly stood up, keeping my movements deliberate and calm. "What do you want?" I whispered, my voice trembling. The creature took a step forward, the ground vibrating with its weight. It extended a massive hand towards me, fingers long and clawed. Yet there was a sadness in its gesture that contradicted its fearsome appearance. "Lost, alone, need peace," it intoned, the words reverberating through the stillness of the night. I took a cautious step forward, driven by a mix of fear and compassion. "Are you a spirit?" I asked, my eyes searching its for any hint of understanding. The creature paused, its eyes softening momentarily before the darkness reclaimed them. It let out a sound that was a blend of a growl and a sigh, a noise that conveyed both anger and sorrow. Bound to this place, unable to move on, a chill ran down my spine as the gravity of the situation settled in. "How can I help you?" I asked, determined to find a way to ease its torment. The creature stepped back, its form beginning to shimmer and fade like mist under the morning sun. "Release us. Break the chains that bind us," it whispered, the words lingering in the air as it dissolved into the night. Panic surged through me as I realized I was alone once more, the footprints leading into the dense forest disappearing as abruptly as they had appeared. The realization that I had witnessed something beyond my understanding left me shaken, but also resolute. I knew I had to uncover the truth behind this apparition, to free the spirit that had reached out to me in its time of need. The following days were a whirlwind of research and interviews with local tribes and fellow explorers. The indigenous stories spoke of El Guardian, a protector spirit of the Amazon, a being of immense power and sorrow. Legends told of explorers who had encountered it, each leaving with a story of fear, compassion, and an unresolved mystery. I decided to return to the spot where I had encountered the creature, armed with new knowledge and a sense of purpose. The journey was arduous, the rainforest seemingly more alive, as if aware of my mission. Each step forward was a step deeper into the heart of the unknown, the shadows of the forest growing longer and more oppressive. On the 8th night, I set up camp near the riverbank once more, the same eerie stillness enveloping me as I prepared for another encounter. I sat by the fire, my mind focused on the rituals and prayers I had learned from the local tribes, hoping to perform a ceremony that could release the spirit from its bondage. As midnight approached, the forest fell silent once more, the sounds of the night creatures muted as if holding their breath. I began the ceremony, reciting the incantations with a steady voice, the words flowing from my lips with a mix of reverence and desperation. The air around me grew thick, the temperature dropping rapidly as if the very essence of the forest was responding to my plea. A soft light began to emanate from the surrounding trees, casting a warm glow that contrasted with the chill in the air. The ground beneath me seemed to pulse with energy, the forest coming alive with the presence of countless unseen spirits. The red eyes appeared once more, glowing with a sorrowful light as the creature stepped into view. "Thank you," I whispered, feeling a connection that transcended fear and time. "I will help you find peace." The creature watched me, its eyes filled with gratitude and sorrow. It extended its hand once more, not in menace, but in a gesture of acceptance. "Follow the path, honor the past, release the pain," it intoned, the words echoing through the forest. I nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle upon me. The ceremony continued, the energy of the forest intertwining with my own intentions, weaving a tapestry of light and shadow that enveloped us both. The creature began to dissolve, its form blending seamlessly with the surrounding light, until it was nothing more than a memory etched into the fabric of the rainforest. As dawn broke, the forest was calm once more, the oppressive darkness lifted by the first rays of sunlight. I felt a profound sense of accomplishment and relief, knowing that I had played a part in easing the suffering of a tormented spirit. The legends of El Guardian now held a truth that could no longer be dismissed, a testament to the enduring connection between humanity and the mysteries that lie hidden in the heart of the Amazon. Years have passed since that pivotal night, but the memory of the encounter remains vivid in my mind. The Amazon continues to guard its secrets, its vast expanse a living entity that watches, waits, and holds its stories close to its heart. The spirit of El Guardian serves as a reminder of the delicate balance between exploration and respect, a lesson learned in the shadows of the rainforest. If you ever find yourself venturing into the depths of the Amazon, remember our story, respect the legends, honor the spirits, and tread carefully, for in the heart of the wilderness, amidst the towering trees and the whispering winds, lies a presence that watches, waits, and guards its domain with a vigilance that can turn curiosity into a journey of fear and awe.